So, welcome to another episode of Beta Talk. This season is being sponsored by Primary Pro, which is an outside pipe insulation system. It's fantastic. A lot of the great engineers I know are using it, and you can look them up on their website. They also do something called Condensate Pro as well. So today's episode, I'm joined by my friends from Nesta. Some of my friends from Nesta. Now, if you know me well, listen to the podcast, you'll know I'm a massive fan of Nesta for all sorts of reasons, and some of them reasons may be discussed in this episode. So today I'm joined by Andy Marsden and Codrina Cretu. Codrina, have I pronounced that right?
Thomas, Cretu.
Cretu. And we're going to talk. Well, we're going to talk about all sorts of things, but we're going to be talking about this scheme that Nesta have been running, where people can go and visit a heat pump. And we're going to be talking. It's quite successful. A lot of people I know have found it very successful. I know some of the people, the homeowners that are involved in it. And so over to you guys, sir. Codrina, just explain how that project came about, what it is.
Absolutely. And yeah, thanks for having us, Nathan. So I guess starting from the beginning, just to explain, I guess, where Visit Heat Pump has come from, I think as many people are aware, most people in the UK haven't seen a heat pump. Heat pump adoption is fairly low across the board. And that I think for those that are considering getting one, it's very difficult to figure out how it might work in their home, what it might look like, what it sounds like. And being able to see a heat pump in real life can really kind of help someone become more confident about proceeding with an install. So we started from that kind of challenge of most people haven't seen a heat pump, and we were thinking about, what could Nesta do to sort of address that. And that's how the idea for Visit Heat Pump came about. So the idea is it's a little bit of like an Airbnb or kind of a matchmaking service for kind of people with heat pumps and people who are interested in having a heat pump installed. And the way that the service works is people who are heat pump owners who've had a heat pump installed, they go to the website. They sign up, so they list their property on the website, their address, they give some information about their heat pump setup, upload pictures, kind of talk about their experience. And then people who are interested in getting a heat pump, they go to the website, they kind of have a browse on the map, they add their postcode, and then they can kind of see what the nearest heat pump to them is and book a visit. So that's pretty much the sort of concept. Then they go on that visit. It's a chance to, see that heat pump in real life, and talk to this person that, has been through that experience. And we found that heat pump owners are just such amazing advocates for heat pumps, even more so than maybe your heat pump installer or your energy provider, who often, people see them as they're trying to sell me a service or a product. So they may be less trustworthy than, a fellow kind of a neighbor, a fellow kind of heat pump enthusiast who can give a much more honest account of what the experience has been. So we found that kind of first-hand experience, sharing that, having the opportunity to ask questions is just really powerful in convincing people to go through with an install.
Yeah, you hit on something very important there. So obviously, if people are interested in this technology and they go and speak to someone else that's in the same position as them, i.e., they're just another homeowner, they're not going to talk to an installer who they might feel is trying to sell them something. There's this trust thing. They're talking to someone at the same sort of level of. Yeah, well, one thing interesting that's just popped into my head. Do people, so they go to your website, they can look at the maps, or obviously they're going to go and visit a heat pump that's close proximity to them where they live. Do you find anyone that goes and visits a few, or do they, do they go? They do they?
Yeah, some people do. I think, we've spoken to people who've visited three, four. The website actually lets you kind of filter by various different sort of variables. So it'll be the type of property, the type of heat pump. So I think people obviously look for one that's close to them, but then they're also interested in finding a property that's sort of similar to the property that they live in. So they might kind of maybe go to a few to just get like kind of a diversity of opinions and kind of see the heat pump in a kind of a wider range of sort of settings. So yeah, that's happened quite a bit.
That sounds super exciting. So, and this all fits into social proof, doesn't it? If people see something, it helps.
Mhm.
them answer sort of questions that may be in their mind. So, Andy, have you been involved with this project since its inception?
I've been less involved with this project. I was involved with some of the really early stage testing where we kind of threw the concept out to some householders and we got an idea of how they'd want to engage with it, and we asked questions about kind of how far people are willing to travel, whether looking at a property that was similar to theirs was important, or whether it's more about seeing kind of a heat pump in real life in any kind of a property. So yeah, less involved with this side of things. I think one thing that's really interesting about it that um, has recently been added is the installer angle as well. There's a section on the Visit Heat Pump website that installers can visit to I think Codrina will definitely know more about this than me, but set up a profile for the business and also kind of signpost to installs that they've recently completed.
Yeah, I think we launched this service obviously with the kind of aim of kind of connecting heat pump hosts and heat pump owners, and that's worked really well. But I think sort of 6 months in, we realized that it is actually a really useful tool for installers to showcase the installs that they're really proud of. And that wasn't the kind of aim when we started off, but we realized that there's something in there where, for example, if an installer has a customer that's a bit on the fence, they're not quite sure whether to proceed, saying, well, why don't you go and visit one of my installs? Then that's really powerful because one, I think it kind of signposts that, this installer is really proud of the work that they do, and they're kind of very happy for kind of anyone to go visit it kind of in situ. And then again, kind of having that conversation with the heat pump owner is also really powerful. We actually did kind of 6 months after launch, we looked at some of the data. We spoke to a lot of our hosts and our visitors, trying to understand what the visits actually do. Do they kind of help people sort of move forwards with their kind of heat pump installation journey? And we found that the visitors kind of placed a lot of value on their host's installer recommendation. So if the host says, I went with so and so, I thought they did a brilliant job, then that visitor is much more likely to go with that installer. So then it becomes a really kind of helpful, I think, marketing tool for installers. So what we did is, although first it was just hosts and visitors sort of being able to use the platform, is we opened it up to installers, and we allow installers to go to the website, sign up as a heat pump installation company, add a bit of information about the services that they provide. And then that will basically link their installer profile to all the listings that they have on the website. So all the hosts that have logged their property on the website and have tagged them as the installer will kind of show up there. So then that kind of enables installers to say, here's a link to all of my installs on Visit Heat Pump. Why don't you select one that's close to you, and you can go and see it in real life. So we're really kind of encouraging installers to come and sign up at this stage because they've been getting great value from it, and all the installers that have done so, a lot of them have sort of integrated it within their kind of sales pipeline to, for example, kind of prompt, like I was saying, customers that are on the fence. Why don't you go and see one? A lot of them kind of include it in any newsletter if they're kind of sending customer newsletters and any of their communication. Yeah, it's been a really great tool for those that have used it so far.
That sounds amazing, does it? Yeah, because it's you imagine you've got a customer, and well, it's hard for customers, homeowners. They've got to find someone that they feel they can trust. That's a big piece of this industry, unfortunately. And the engineer can say, well, here's a service. It's an independent service being run by Nesta, and you can go and see one of my installs, and lots of other people have gone to see them as well, and away you go. And of course, they're completely independent from that process. So there's no sale. They're not trying to sell anything. The
No.
customer goes along, has a good chat with the homeowner, and the homeowners obviously, I suppose some homeowners now are quite used to hosting these events and have become quite good at it, I imagine.
Yeah, and also I should say the service is completely free for everyone to use, including installers. So there's no kind of fee or anything for using it. But on your point about the host being enthusiastic, I'm sure that we've kind of working in this industry, we've we've all kind of been surprised by how much heat pump owners are just amazing advocates for heat pumps, and they're so enthusiastic. And I think their generosity just really surprised us. As Andy was saying at the very beginning, we kind of tested it, the proof of concept, like would people be willing to host? Would they be willing to visit? And we weren't quite sure. And I think we've really been blown away by how willing people are to essentially open their homes to strangers and kind of walk them around their home, multiple times, have large groups come over. That's been just really, really amazing. I think we've got 590 hosts at the moment all over the UK, as of this week, I think, which yeah has surprised us quite
That's a
quite a
lot,
bit.
isn't it? That's a good number.
Yeah, we've also hit 1,000 visitors last week, which was a big milestone. It's kind of what we were aiming for. So it's nice. It's nice when we saw those figures.
If I was to ask you, Andy, sort of, is there anything that really sticks out that's that you all you guys have learned from this program that you've initiated?
So I think that visitor heat pump really exemplifies us testing really quickly a concept to build confidence. So there was a lot of risk about suggesting that heat pump owners open their homes and show people around, and it felt like a place that Nesta is really well suited to move into. It's something that is difficult for kind of installers or people within the industry to kind of run and build that trust. So I think a big learning is actually testing the service, testing these ideas with households, with the industry as quickly as possible to then look how we can grow it and scale it. Having the network of homes around the country, around GB is amazing now and probably beyond the expectations of those kind of initial tests that we ran. So I suppose actually doing the thing and building it is something for us to take away. And it ties into a lot of the other work as well. So understanding more about kind of installers' needs, more about kind of what homeowners are asking when they're going to visit a heat pump. It ties into the thing other strands of work that we kind of discuss internally.
Yeah, because you've built up a good cohort of consumers that I would say are very informed consumers because obviously while they're hosting these events, they're honing down their sort of patter, as it were. They're getting to understand what the questions are from people. So they kind of are getting very used to actually not just explaining these systems, but for understanding all the possible questions that people might be asking. So obviously these become a great cohort, a resource for you guys for any of your other projects, because obviously this is a very consumer focused centric industry we're all in, and this whole transition is very consumer sort of focused, isn't it? We've got to be, and I argue that they and the engineers are definitely the two most important cohorts, bar none. Sort of. I mean, interestingly, I mean, Oxfordshire Council, who are in a consortium with Samson in one of the heat pump ready Stream One projects, they found that this thing of people with a heat pump, I think they called them champions. They were advocates. So there were people that had heat pumps installed, and then they became advocates by opening up their homes to allow others that were sort of starting to get interested. I'm trying to think what the project was called, Clean Heat Streets or something. Um,
Yeah,
and they found that to be one of the most successful things of that project. For the same reasons, I think you guys, the homeowners became super engaged about doing this, and also the people going to visit were very engaged because, like I say, it's when you're meeting someone that's got that technology, they're not trying to sell anything to you, and they're answering all your questions as long as they can. Is there anything you think you could do if you were to design it again, or in as you sort of progress? Is there things that you would tweak to make this whole project better, or are you happy with how it's sort of running, or is there anything you're thinking about what you could do?
Yeah, I think there's many things that we can do, and I think one approach that we take at Nesta, and Andy's kind of alluded to that already, is we build things quite quickly. And there's an advantage to that, building a thing quickly, putting it out there, seeing if it works, as opposed to maybe spending a lot of time polishing something and then you put it out there and no one uses it. So that's kind of the approach that we took. But kind of complementary to that is the fact that we're always improving the service. I think we started with a very sort of lo-fi version of it, put it out there, people loved it. But then we've spent the past year really improving the usability of it, the experience of it. We've added features like the kind of installers being able to sign up, and we're continuing to do that. Another sort of point linked to the hosts being sort of very generous with their time. They're very generous with their feedback as well. So every week I kind of go through like so many emails of people just being like, this feature should be different. You should do this. So we've got a very long list of changes that we're kind of slowly working through, improvements that we want to make. I think as we're using it, we're just also realizing that we can make it better, for example, for installers. Just to sort of give an example, it's not something that the platform's able to do right now, but we quickly, as we're kind of encouraging installers to sign up, we realize that we don't have a solution for umbrella schemes or any sort of installer installing a heat pump on behalf of another company, so kind of subcontracted, because essentially the host might either know the name of the installer or the bigger company. So there's kind of a mismatch there in kind of what they tag as being kind of their installer, and we haven't sort of cracked that yet. So there's issues like that coming up all the time, but we're also just all the time trying to kind of improve that and figure out, what's most impactful, what features we can add or make a difference in how people use the website and reach ultimately, because I think ultimately we want, everyone to have a heat pump near them that they can go visit. And there's some, I guess, areas of the UK that are less kind of well covered. So we're trying to kind of get good geographical coverage, a good spread of types of homes, types of heat pumps, kind of, just setups. So there's always stuff to do and kind of ways to develop this further, I think.
Where's just out of interest? Where is the most coverage? Is there a certain part of the UK where there's you got quite a high density of these?
Good question. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I think
And
just
have you got any in the Hebrides, Outer Hebrides yet?
yeah, I think we do just because that would have just kind of high heat pump density anyway. I think it's difficult. For example, we have a few in cities like London, but not enough. So we find that London, for example, has a huge demand for visits from visitors. There's obviously so many people in London, and each kind of event that goes up in London has so many sign-ups. So there's definitely, I think, a need for kind of more heat pump hosts in sort of very dense urban sort of settings. Whereas we found that kind of heat pumps in maybe more remote location tend to get less bookings, sometimes no bookings, because there's just like less sort of local demand. There's less people around that area.
It's interesting, Andy, this feedback you're getting from the hosts, the homeowners. So how do you organise that feedback? Is it basically just done by email? Yeah, they'll email you saying this is what we found with this particular visit, right? Are you? Because I know you guys are quite clever, and I know you've done AI stuff before. Because I've done some alpha testing and beta testing for one of your artificial intelligence type things. But are you sort of having all them emails come in, and then you're running sort of these algorithms over it, so you can ask it questions very, very quickly? What are you doing that? Are you sort of orchestrating this feedback in a sort of a logical process, if that makes sense?
So with Visit Heat Pump, I think there's a lot of emails coming in from
Yeah.
hosts and from installers. I think we really vary the way that we test things more broadly. So we've in the past we've run kind of focus groups, workshops to actually get different stakeholders, whether that's households or industry, or to get a real mix in the room, so that we can get that feedback really quickly. And that's on Visit a Heat Pump or other projects as well. Or we do use kind of online tools. We've looked at AI interviews where we recently ran as a bit of an experiment an AI chatbot led interview. So we asked a range of households around the UK about subsidies and bus in particular, and it was really interesting to see how people responded to kind of a WhatsApp chat about kind of subsidies and bus, and so we're experimenting with how to collect feedback, how to we're a pretty small team. And try and cover a lot of ground. So I think it's really useful to see how we can use kind of AI and those new kind of techniques to reach as many people as possible and get the broadest range of insight, because there's always surprises even the WhatsApp messages when you see those conversations and you're reading the dialogue between kind of the a bot and a household. It throws up loads of surprises that I think you wouldn't get unless you're constantly engaging with people.
Yeah, sorry, Nathan, just to add to that, and just kind of flag a project that our colleague Sophia our colleagues Sophia and Aidan kind of ran recently, linked to kind of what you were asking. Not specific to Visit a Heat Pump, but they used data science techniques to basically scrape data from and kind of conversations from the money saving expert forum, just to understand what people kind of are saying about heat pumps, the types of questions that they're asking. They published a report earlier this month. That's a really interesting read for anyone that's interested, just to kind of get a sense of, I guess, the kind of overall mood and the types of things that people are interested in.
No, that's super interesting. I mean, I've chatted to Aidan about that over a cup of coffee at Nesta. I mean, it's really interesting what you can do with all this stuff now. It's all a bit over my head. It's all quite computer and technical. I want to come back to something, well, 2 points. You mentioned about these umbrella companies. That's super interesting, that is, because obviously, yes, there's a lot of installs that will go in under. So if we look at the top, I think every month or however often they do publish the figures of the but installs under the bus scheme. So Octopus are number one. So they're doing more bus installs than anyone else. And then I think it's the HPIN, which is now EDF. And then, I mean, I think even Air is down at number 6, but it was pre-Christmas. Most of that top 10 are umbrella, quite established umbrellas. So the new sort of systems like HeatGeek aren't even in that top 10, but are umbrella companies. And of course, yeah, an umbrella can use anyone and everyone. Which actually is a bit of a problem. I mean, I've got a chat coming up with Energy Systems Catapult after this one, because obviously my friend Tristan at Heat Pump Monitor has put all the electrification of heat data into their platform and has visualized it in amazing ways. So there was 19 contractors involved in the installation of them 750 heat pumps. You know, there's obviously Ove, Warmworks, and Eon, sort of the partners that were sort of running it. But, you know, you can single out each installation company to see what the mean SPF, season performance factor, was, and all this wonderful. I mean, arguably, Energy Systems Catapult should have done this. I mean, they got paid to sort of analyse the data. But Tristan does that for free. And it's, you know, the performance is poor. You know, we can't get away from it. These contractors who were doing them installs, I call it unconscious incompetence. Everyone knows this podcast will have heard me talk about that. So the umbrella thing is really interesting and how you solve that. But there was something else I wanted to ask. Your hosts, are they in a forum where they can chat with each other? And the reason I ask, because obviously I hate being called an expert engineer. My skill set is really in how we learn. That's what I did my degree in. And I don't know if he still does it, but there was an educational psychologist, I think it was from Australia, John Hattie, and he used to publish every year or every 2 years, he used to publish this list, which was a list of what had the highest impact on learning. And he was doing it for years and years and years. Feedback was always a high up, and you had educational psychologists like Dylan William, who did big studies on feedback. But the highest was always something called collective teacher efficacy, which is really, really interesting because it's so simple to do. And all that is where the teachers, let's say I used to teach in a college, would get together once a week, twice a week, get together in the staff and say, like, what worked for you? What were the challenges? Did you find any challenges with any specific? And because you're feedback into each other, it then helps you to when you go out and do your next lesson, in this sort of subconscious ways, and it's known as having the highest impact on learning. And I was thinking, for some of your hosts, I imagine are super engaged and loving doing this now. If they were in a forum where they could chat with each other and say, yeah, what were the questions you found challenging, and how did you approach them challenging questions, etc., etc. So they could feed back to each other, and that's called, well, in the education, it's called collective teacher efficacy. But I imagine they could do that, would find it super useful because they're all in this lovely cohort together, aren't they? Doing something very, very good for society. Um, like you said, Andy, when you started this program, you thought, well, is there any risk? Will people want people coming into their homes here? Is it going to be something that they want to do? And it turns out they actually quite love doing it, don't they?
Yeah, I agree. And we don't do that at the moment, although this idea has been suggested to us before. And I think there is something really powerful in sort of bringing people together that have kind of a shared experience and enabling them to kind of share kind of knowledge, which is why I think a lot of the projects that we do focus on that, on kind of bringing people together, kind of, and that works very well, for example, in kind of small localities. It works well when local authorities, for example, kind of decarbonize, a neighborhood, a street, because it enables maybe people to come together, share experience. If they're going through the same thing at the same time, it's just really powerful to kind of have that sense of community. And I think it sort of links to some other work that Andy's doing, for example, on clean heat neighborhoods, which is also kind of looking at sort of decarbonizing kind of smaller localities and kind of doing it at the same time, which I think, and one of the kind of impacts and benefits of that is that kind of ability to kind of share with others that are kind of going through a similar experience. I don't know, Andy, if you want to say more about that.
Yeah, I suppose to tie that with the Samsung and Clean Heat Streets example that you mentioned earlier, Nathan, it's quite a small geographical area that they've targeted and they're looking at. And I spoke to the team there a couple of times. My understanding is that even within that small geographical area, you've got different communities, you've got kind of different demographics. So there's kind of a road that I think runs through the middle of the area, and on either side you have kind of different communities and different demographics. So they they kind of worked across that really to kind of have, my understanding is to have examples of heat pumps and properties and in both of those kind of contexts to help with uptake and to help answer questions. So on a really like hyper local level, it's important to start to share those kind of experiences. And as Codrina mentioned, it's something we're really interested in with clean heat neighborhoods. We think that the individual route that is currently kind of the main way that people are installing heat pumps is great. One critique is it going quick enough, and are there other ways that we can rolling out heat pumps and electrified heat quicker? And I think that's why we're interested in an area-based approach that maybe ties together some of that kind of communal learning with maybe different technologies as well. So alongside your individual air source heat pumps, how can we start looking at shared ground loops or heat networks, and for the properties that uh, may may not be the best suited to air source, may benefit from another approach. So I think there's a couple of things there around kind of communal kind of learning and sharing on a hyper local level, but also looking at enabling kind of different solutions for different properties as well.
It's interesting that that Oxfordshire. So I don't know if you've had a chance to chat with. So it's Lucy Fairchild at the council, and then obviously you've got well, you've got Oxford University and Oxford Brookes that have been studying it. So I think they've pulled in some really, really clever data about that whole bit. And you're right, there was because obviously the language had to be quite flexible because they've got different types of people, different people from different demographics living in this very small area, um, which I think is Rose Hill in Oxfordshire. I mean, actually, 20 miles down the road is quite a famous heat pump. I've just put in, well, my cousin and I helped him, but yeah, we replaced roughly where we replaced the system we put in for Pink Floyd in 1986. So there's a famous residential studio, recording studio in that area. Um, and we've just put it in for the new owners, the new system. So the yeah, the studies or the stuff that they would have found, because I think this whole idea of trying to capture the attention of a local community where they all think, oh yeah, this is a good idea, this is a good idea, that's going to scale up. I mean, you've mentioned there about the heat networks and ambient loops. So that site I've just mentioned, Tristan from Open Energy Monitor, has just put all the electrification of heat data on a separate site. Anyone that wants to go to it, it's www. I don't even think you have to put the WWs in anymore, as long as you've got the HTT, whatever it is. But it's electrification. So it's eoh.heatpumpmonitor.org. And on that is some Kenza installs. So Kenza units have gone in and Kenza did the installation. And if I'm being honest, the performance isn't good. It's around 2. And I've been saying to Kenza for a long time, people need to see, because I get a lot of social housing people and local authorities come to me who want to be involved in the social housing decarbonisation fund, and obviously are looking at ambient systems, as Kenza do them, Dimplex do them, and Quantum do them. But of course, they want to see data. They want to see, well, how good are they? What is and because the performance actually now that Tristan has done it, arguably it could be a lot better, if I'm honest. So people people start to need to think about that, because if we're going to start to do clean, whole streets, etc., etc., that them individual homeowners deserve something to be a little bit that's going to perform quite well. What are the other projects you guys are involved in at the moment? Because I know you do lots and lots of things. You all work really, really hard. What are you doing at the moment?
I can share one that I'm working on at the moment that I'm excited about. Maybe I'll pass over to Andy. But I'm working and together with my colleagues that are kind of data scientists and designers and so on kind of an updated heat pump cost estimator. So we used to kind of have this cost estimator a while ago when it kind of wasn't the best and it didn't have very good sort of usability and data underpinning it. And we're sort of remaking it kind of improved, better version. So this is a tool aimed at consumers to kind of enable them to get an accurate heat pump cost estimation based on the type of home they live in, their address, and so on. This is using historical MCS data. So the kind of tool is looking at kind of your type of home and kind of setup, and it's looking at similar MCS installs that have happened in the past and kind of generating an estimate that way. So that's really exciting because their cost continues to be kind of on consumers' minds quite a lot. And I know there's a lot of kind of cost estimators out there by sort of commercial organizations that kind of do this kind of online quoting system. I think there's something in kind of an independent source like Nesta sort of providing this sort of data that's really grounded in kind of historic MCS data, because it's not just sort of making up a number. It's saying people in your situation have paid about this much. So that's very exciting. Yeah. Andy, do you want to maybe give your sort of maybe
Yeah,
example of a project that excites you?
maybe a couple of projects. One that I'm more of a passenger on, really. My data science colleagues are working on a map of heat pump suitability. So that touches on what I've just talked about around different types of heat pumps and what are the most suitable for different areas. And they're currently looking at ALSOA level. So that's a group of homes that is I I think it's around 500 homes ish as a rough kind of example, and the whole of GB is split up into those LSOAs, and they've tried to gauge from looking at EPC data and things like garden size, actually where are really suitable for air source heat pumps now, where might we need to look at kind of those ambient loops or heat networks. And I think it's really exciting because there's starting to be a lot of people thinking about this in kind of local authorities or areas where they know this transition is coming, but kind of what's the plan and how do we start to deliver this? And it's interesting to see that tool and how local authorities might start to use it to start to kind of promote the direction to households, but then also exploring the kind of potential impact on supply chain and giving confidence to installers that kind of that is the direction for an area. So that kind of sits alongside another project that I'm working on, there's clean heat neighborhoods that we've talked about, and that's really developing that proposal for area-based approaches to clean heat. And we've got some really exciting conversations going on with local authorities and different parts of GB. So looking at kind of a city area and what are the difficulties in a city to understand the approaches for different areas, but also more rural. And the challenges are quite different. So what we've heard from quite a rural area is the installer base is still developing. So how can local authorities really help to transition the kind of people with the expertise to start installing heat pumps and start to kind of move into that space. So yeah, that's really it's a really broad project. It's really exciting to be working across kind of the different technologies, the different scales, and we're really external facing, so we're hoping to be on the ground in the next few months, kind of testing some of the ideas with the supply chain, local authorities, and households in some of those locations.
That said, it's just one of the technologies that not many people know. I mean, I introduced lots and lots of people. I can't remember if I've introduced these to Madeline, and I should do. So there's solid state heat pumps. Now, a solid state heat pump, for all intents and purposes, looks a little bit like a storage heater that someone would have in their home. And it's they're now getting up to about scops of three, I think, or 2.5 to three. But they also ventilate the home as well, which is very, very super interesting. So you don't need any outside space for an outside fan coil or a monoblock. So this is really interesting technology that I've come across. I mean, it's been around. The sort of the technology behind it's been around for donkey's years, but it's people have been innovating around it, and that looks really, really interesting. Obviously, everyone knows I'm a big advocate of air to air because my family have been installing it for nearly half a century. Um, I think people only just realised it now exists. Obviously, we've got that big study now coming with the Energy Systems Catapult and the Department for Energy Security Net Zero. But what I am a little bit concerned about that study is because I want to see the methodology published first. Because I think the methodology that was used in the electrification of heat trials could have been better, and if it was peer assessed, you put it out publicly, and anyone and everyone can have a little sort of say and say, "Well, I think you could do this, and that might make it better." It would have been a better trial, and I think they really should be doing that with the air-to-air trials. Otherwise, because me personally, I'm not trying to be dismissive for anyone. I don't think Energy Systems Catapult have people within that team who really, really understand that technology and can design a system or a study that can really sort of get to grips with it. Now they'll probably tell me off for saying that, but we're allowed to say stuff like this. It's all part of their system thinking, as they like to talk about. You've also talked about the engineers. One of the things I really like Nesta for is you really engage with the engineers, and you've all been out, I think, to see Leia's team at Your Energy Your Way. Obviously, Leia and I won an award recently for equality and diversity because she's got lots of women sort of students and trainees who I used to teach some of them at your offices at Nesta, didn't I? But you've actually been out on site to sort of visit them and shadow them, haven't you? How was that, Codrina?
Really, really good. I mean, it often feels weird sort of working in this sector kind of from like an office in the center of London. So it's just so nice to actually um just kind of be on site and kind of, see some of these things that you talk about quite a lot, but you have very little kind of on no first experience of. So it's been really, really good to do that and kind of see what a day in the life of engineer looks like. And I think most of our team now has gone and shadowed. I know Andy has as well, so it's been really good. It's kind of a rite of passage, I think, in the team to kind of have done it because it just. I mean, yeah, it does really make a difference, I think. Andy, what was your experience like? I really enjoyed mine.
Yeah, it was great. It's just spending a day kind of chatting about their work, kind of with a wider kind of, I suppose, issues and challenges and kind of the day-to-day kind of work is super useful. And yeah, really it's really good to yeah get out and do that and be on site. Off the back of it, they gave me the confidence to change my own radiators. So I'm renovating a house, so it was great. I've managed to switch a few radiators out in
Oh,
the
fantastic! Oh, that's cool. That is really, really cool. No, it's great when people actually get out there properly and see what it's all about. Um, they're great. They're a fantastic team, aren't they? Yeah, great, great team. Now, Codrina, you've got to jump off to another meeting. Andy, we can stay and chat for another 10 minutes if you want. I don't know if you've got to jump off as well.
I could do with jumping off, unfortunately. Yeah,
Well, there
11.
we go. We've done about 40 minutes, I think, haven't we? And we've had a good chat.
Thanks for
Anything
having us.
else you wanted to add? I mean, obviously, I see you guys often because I come up to your offices quite often. But unless there's anything else you want to add,
Yeah, just a quick plug. I've mentioned this for the fact that Visit Heat Pump is open to installers, and any installers can sign up. It's super quick, it's free to use, and I think it's a really important and useful kind of marketing tool that could really kind of help showcase those kind of installs that people are proud of. So do sign up. It's really easy to do.
without a doubt, yeah. I mean, I know some good engineers already on it and using it. I've had a couple of them on the podcast. I mean, Paul Eastwood, who was at the where was he? The Foreign Office. He's now at Ofgem, involved in all this sort of decarbonisation piece. He's one of these people that opens his home up, and we've had him on the podcast, and along with Barry, who installed the system. So I'll be pushing that and promoting that to all the good engineers I know as well, because it's a super fantastic. Well, I'm going to call it a marketing tool for them, but it's a nice social proof, because they're going to go and speak to one of their customers, and you won't get all the, it's not sales patter, it's just helping people understand what all this stuff's about. So well done, guys. It's a great little thing you're doing. Keep up the good work. I know you all work really, really hard in your teams, and it was lovely chatting to you today.
Likewise. Thanks, Nathan.
See you
Great. Thank
later.